Guys, thank you so much for joining me today on another podcast of A Dad's Message to His Kids. Today I have John Patrick Morgan. He runs the company Creating, and he is my personal coach. This is a man who's been there since the beginning, before the inception of this podcast, before I really had this focus on the coaching business. And he's been helping me with my business, with my state of being. A lot of the stuff that I've been learning and teaching you guys has honestly just been coming from his. It's copy and paste through my own format, at least, or at least what I've learned and just integrated. So I'm really happy to have you on here, JP. I love what I've learned from you. I love how you've shown up consistently, and I like to start things off very simple. How many kids do you have, and what are their names?
I have two kids, two boys. 5.5-year-old named Asher and a 1.5-year-old named Rumi. Yeah. You might be able to hear them in the distance. They're out in the other room right now Asher's getting ready for school.
And what is your happiest memory so far with Asher and with Rumi?
The happiest memory is just the freshest one, which was yesterday. I just went out and gave him a hug to say good morning. And I said, I had so much fun with you yesterday because we had... I picked him up from school and we just hung out from like 2 to 5, just the two of us. And he said, yeah. And his eyes went wide and he's like grinned and he was like bounced his legs up and down. So he's sitting on the counter. And it's like, obviously that was like a 2-minute ago memory, but it's the happiest because it's like so present. But it's just it's an example of what makes being a dad so awesome. Is that your days are punctuated with these moments of like heart-bursting joy and gratitude. I just was thinking about how I've said lots of times to people like, oh, some of the happiest times of my life were when I was like backpacking the world, living in the camper van. And it's like, yeah, but it's true, but that's kind of classically happy. Like the actual, these moments of explosive gratitude and joy, they're different than that feelings of being an adventure. And there's something I didn't really have that much of. Being in love with a woman, of course, is similar, but like, it's just awesome with kids. It's so primal, they say one thing or do one thing and you get like this punch in the heart. It's so awesome. A pleasure punch in the heart. Yeah.
Love that, man. What would you say is your proudest moment so far as a father?
My proudest moment as a dad. My son's teacher said to us at our parent-teacher meeting that he's linguistically gifted. And I was proud of that, I think, because I just talk to him about words and language all the time. And that's like such a high interest in mine. And a lot of having a kid is a chance to like extend yourself into another human body. You get to be like, at least in the beginning, you're kind of mapping a lot of your values onto them. And so they become their own more and more. So I was pretty proud of that. I'm not sure it's a healthy thing because it was kind of like, hey, look at that. That's me, but that was, to be honest, that was like a moment of pride, whether healthy or not. It really put a smile on my face. Yeah.
Well, I'm curious, why would it be considered unhealthy in the sense that like to me, the way I see it is like, look at what I did. Like,
yeah.
Like this language, I know I learned from you how important language is. Like,
Absolutely.
that to me
Sure.
is critical. And like for someone that young, that's pretty awesome.
What I mean by that is like the word pride in general has like, it's like a slippery word because there's ways of being in relationship to it that are healthy. That is like the sense of accomplishment, but through doing work that's important to you and you value, that's part of it. But it's also the same word to represent like the egoic pat on the back, for, to pump yourself up for something that, is born from a kind of fear. And so like for me, I will sometimes pride myself on my intelligence or my ability to articulate. And sometimes that's coming from, where I put my attention and the hard work and what I've cultivated. But sometimes it's an expression of that fear of not being powerful that started when I was really young, that became, I'm going to try to be as smart as I can so that I can be more powerful because I'm not that big. I'm a shorter kid. So like, I'm going to be powerful in the intelligence way. And so, and both those dynamics live in me. And I'm just conscious of it. So when I feel it, I like to mark it out to kind of keep myself present to the both that's going on there. Keep myself honest with myself, I guess.
I like that. And okay, let's flip it around.
Yeah.
What would you say is, a regret that you have as a dad?
Oh man, I have way more of those. It's just all the time. The other day, the way that I shouted at Asher for the way that he was shouting, it's so ridiculous in hindsight, but he kept screaming and screaming. And then we're like out in public and there's people all looking at us and I'm starting to be like embarrassed because my son's like having a total freak out meltdown because the taco truck is closed. And I'm like, stop screaming, like in this like kind of hushed screaming voice, which is like very awkward and it was even more embarrassing. And I know that the shame around that is actually the worst possible part of it. And so, since the weekend, I've been like reflecting on like where that comes from in me and, the behavior, the pattern itself, and, how I wasn't allowed to scream when I was a kid. And if I did, the wrath of my father would scare me and have me not feel loved. And so I try to make sure that my kid doesn't scream now as a projection of my own fear of not being loved by my dad. And so when I see the whole matrix, I can relax and I cannot feel ashamed for it because it's just this pattern that's playing itself out and I'm learning to be in better relationship with. But yeah, man, I mean, when I say there's so many more of them, it's just because, as you know, like from the work that we do, I've got a lot of, I'm always looking for like, where can I grow? So I've got a lot of awareness around just the ways that I'm being with my son that I would love to be better. Let's just say, yeah.
I love what you tapped into there. Just like, again, it's like such a small instance of, wow, like I feel guilty. I feel shame about that. I'm curious, you mentioned some things about how you dealt with that just now, but in my experience, just talking to other men and just talking about, even my dad, like how he's felt about certain things. It's like shame is a big thing. It creates can even create a lot of inaction if we allow, we can create a lot of inaction out of it.
Totally.
I'm curious, what have you done or what's kind of, I mean, again, we're humans. We're not like, we're not just like these processes like, yeah, let's do this, and then we're good.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, what are some things that you've done to kind of like combat with that? Maybe not combat, but like heal from that shame and just like, what, it's okay. It happened.
Well, it's a practice, right? The shame shows up. And then for me, the practice is forgiving myself, not seeing. So I love this distinction. I think it was Brene Brown that I got it from, shame versus guilt. And she's like, guilt is a healthy feeling that motivates you to do something different, to hold yourself accountable, to make amends, to grow, whereas shame is an identification with that thing that's undesirable or non-useful that actually has you feel bad about yourself. So it's kind of similar to like pain versus suffering. Like pain is like the body has experience that's non-pleasurable. We call it pain. And the suffering is in the relationship we have to that pain. Oh, I wish my arm didn't hurt. Oh, it's always hurting. And that makes it hurt more. But then the suffering is a lot of it's the psychological, mental, spiritual anguish in relationship to the pain. And I feel like shame is similar. Like there's guilt, but then there's what do I do with that guilt? If I start to identify with like, that means I'm a bad dad. See, I'm just like my father was with me. I'm not growing. I'm not changing. He's yelling, I'm yelling at him. How ridiculous, how stupid I am. Like shame is the I am layer on top of the feeling of guilt. And so for me, the forgiveness is I forgive myself for judging myself that I am a bad dad or I am not growing. I forgive myself for that, believing that. So it kind of like it peels back shame and allows it to just be guilt in a sense. So there's still like, oh, that's I don't want that. I want something different. And so I'm going to take this energy and use it to sit down with my journal and pen, to have the conversation with my wife or my son, both of which I've had since the weekend, and use that to transform, to grow, to do better, to be better.
So, something that stood out to me, or the big thing is like, what do you do with the guilt?
Mm-hmm.
It reminds me, like the other day, I think it was yesterday or the day before, I was studying like about regret from Brooke Castillo, and she was like, look, like regret is most people use it in a way that we judge ourselves, we stay stuck in the feeling, kind of like going a merry-go-round of emotions. And the way to, and she gave some cool ideas of like how to use regret. I think like it's like, huh, like this is how I can, because the emotion is the emotion. Can't control if you feel it or not, but it's what happens after that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Regret, guilt. How do you use energy? Do you use it to motivate you to do something, to grow, to change, or do you use it to beat yourself up basically and turn it into an identity? I think that choice point is an important one. The more awareness we have around when we're doing that, one or the other, the more power we have to pick the more useful approach, I think.
Yeah, I think learning even the practice of forgiveness for yourself would really help a lot of men. Just like, look, this is what happened. Like,
yeah.
It's the sense of ownership, and here's what I can do next. That to me is
Yeah.
the common thread I'm seeing.
Yeah, like one of the biggest insights for me is how this sounds kind of crazy, but like judging myself for yelling at my kid is worse than yelling at my kid. If yelling at my kid is something I don't want to do, like for me, I don't want to be screaming at my kid unless it's like he's in physical danger or something. It's just like for my values, like I don't want to do that. And I have a pattern of doing that from time to time. Raising my voice when in hindsight, when I'm out of that moment, it's like that wasn't necessary, wasn't useful, isn't ideal. So I don't want that. And if I do that and then judge myself for it, the fact that I judge myself for doing that is worse than the fact that I did it. And so it's more important for me to forgive myself of doing it than not doing it, which sounds crazy, but actually, paradoxically, by letting myself off the hook for doing it, I stop living in the shame as somebody who does it, which makes me less likely to do it in the future.
That's powerful. I love that.
Yeah.
And wait, my next question for you is, if you were to go back in time, would you do the same with Rumi and Asher?
Oh, cool. What would I do the same? Because usually people ask, what would you do different? Clever question. I like it. Well, what I would do the same is support their mother through their birth in the same way that I did, which is for them as well. Or to just be there for her, essentially. Not try to give advice, but also not like walk away, do it on your own. So that's just like super present, support whatever she needs. I would hold them in the same way that I have since they were born. I would look at them and look into their eyes the same way that I have. I would tell them I love them as often as I tell them. I would put my phone away as many times as I remembered to. If you asked me what would I do differently, I would say put it away more. But at least the times that I have, I would continue to do. I would do that again. Yeah, and I would. I'd get Asher off the fucking iPad just as much as I have. It was so good that we dropped the screen time dramatically. We do 1 day a week for a couple hours now. It used to be all the time, and he's like a different kid now without it. It's so much better. Yeah, there's lots of things that I'd do again. Thanks for asking that. That's a really beautiful question for what it creates in me through looking at my fathering through the lens of what I would do again. That's a real gift. Thank you.
Hey, thank you for going there.
Yeah.
And you touched on something very interesting, because I've noticed this a lot too. Like, to me, it's like, what would I do? And I'm proudly selfishly, like in a good way, doing these podcasts so I can learn what it's like to be a great dad.
Good for you.
I would like to be a great dad. And I'm like the iPad thing, like, tell me what did you notice first when he was using the iPad like consistently? What did you notice? Because you said he's like a different kid.
Oh my God, it's like night and day. Yeah. I mean, just the way that, his brain is in the stage of development where it's like he's probably producing like so many more neurons per minute or hour than we can as adults, right? So he's literally his being, his personality is being generated and crafted through every experience, and so suddenly a portion of his day every day was being like an hour or something was being created through, watching like, I don't know, people opening toys on like Amazon packages on like, it's like, what the hell? Like this kids YouTube that you can download. It's like just for kids, but like it's still YouTube. And so it's an algorithm, and the algorithm was learning his behavior, and he was just hitting play, skip to the next one, skip. And it was like he was addicted, and all this information was just going into his head. And you could see when you turned it off, he would just be like in a daze, and he'd just be like needing loads of toys. I need this, I need that. And his ability to regulate his emotions was so low. He would just freak out so much more and so much more easily. He was so hypersensitive. He couldn't be present with his environment. And even when it was like 24 hours after the screen, it was just still kind of vibrating in that way. And then, and we didn't even really know that he was a more relaxed, chilled out, sensitively like aware kid until there were periods of time where we weren't using it. And it was like, he's just so chill and so much more imaginative and playful and engaged in his environment, and so much more able to regulate his emotions. So, it was a bunch of travel time that we had basically, because we were like moving. And so he had an iPad, we had Wi-Fi in the car. So it was like, we'd be in the house watching something. We'd like just switch from the house Wi-Fi to the car Wi-Fi. And it was like no interruption, because and it starts to get, what happens is it becomes a bind for when your kid's on the screen, because the more they use the screen, the less able they are to regulate their emotions, and the more volatile they are. And then the more the screen becomes a way to calm them down so that you can have some peace and you can talk to your partner. And then so you give them the screen, just freaking give them the iPad so we can have a break. But of course, that's like, just give them another shot of, heroin or whatever it is. It makes it worse. And so once we, there's always there's a period of withdrawal that's brutal for everybody. But then it's like, it's just beautiful. Like the birds are chirping, the sun comes up, the clouds, and it's awesome. So, and we're blessed. The school that we've chosen here in Maui is a Waldorf school, and they have a no screen time during the week rule anyway. So like once a week for a couple of hours really fits with that. And that's what he expects now. He doesn't expect it more than that. And he really looks forward to it. But the rest of the week, he's just kind of like, he's in the world talking about, the plants and the animals that he's actually in touch with, instead of, the animated characters that live inside this virtual world. And we don't do any of the other stuff anymore, like no YouTube, no games. He can watch a show, but there's not so much like interactive stuff, because that really entangles you.
2 questions. How much time did he spend before everything like on the iPad, and then how quickly did you notice that difference?
I mean, there was a point where it was up to like 30 minutes or even an hour per day.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, which,
that's pretty little compared to like most.
I mean, I have no idea what like some families do, but like for us, that was like, even when we were doing that, we felt like it was too much, but we were doing it, right? So, wow. And I guess there were certain days, if we'd gone a long car drive, that he might have even had more than that. But like, I remember, 30 minutes to an hour was probably the most, an average. And he would have a day off here and there, but that was just, it was too much. And what did you say? When did I notice what? When did I notice?
Like how long did it take for you to notice like, oh wow, he's now a different, or he's interacting with
an hour?
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. And so it wasn't like, it took a few weeks of him doing an hour a day, like literally the first hour coming off that, like he's different the hour after than he was the hour before. I mean, there's like a half-life to that, to the impact. The problem wasn't just that. I mean, we knew that from the beginning, but it was like, but it wears off. But what we didn't realize is that, it's not really wearing off. It's compounding, and it's changing who he is in a patterned way, and it's lasting longer and longer. The half-life was getting longer. So yeah.
So what has that meant for like something that come to mind is like, yeah, like he's spending so much time on this stuff, or any kid just spending so much time, that not only affects his relationship with the world, but even his relationship with you. Like that's time that you guys are not spending time together.
Well, that was fucking awesome, because the hardest thing is to not get a break. And so like I would love if there was a device that he could spend an hour with and it wouldn't fuck him up. I'd be like, get that shit, buy that fucking thing, get it over here, give me just like 1 hour, my wife and I, 1 hour of a break. But like the fact that it's not good for him makes it not worth it. I mean, it's not like I don't have time with him. There's plenty of time I spend a lot of, I know a lot of dads don't have that convenience, but like, I do. I picked him up. I finished my calls at 12. I'm done with my work by 2. He finishes school at 2. Like I got time with my son. There's no doubt about that. But, but I know for a lot of people that could be a bonus. If they're not on the screen, then they get to spend time with him. It's just not the context for me.
So, and I'm curious, what do you guys do now? It's like, what do you do now, like, to have that break? Or do you not have, like, it's like,
well, there's no screen break because life is like, he uses his iPad for like 2 hours on Friday nights, pizza night, we call it. Yeah. Pizza and an iPad. And it's cute. He sits next to us on the sofa. That's the only night that my wife and I watch TV. We watch TV and he sits next to us with his iPad and we eat pizza. But what do we do the rest of the time? Are you asking like, well, what do you guys do if he's not on the screen? Like, what could you possibly fill your life question, with? Yeah,
yeah. Look, we put the screen in front of him because this was the problem.
And yes.
Or not like we wanted a break. We wanted some quiet time. We wanted time to ourselves.
Yeah, so we're not getting that right now. That's one of the problems. Like we're navigating that. Part of the problem is we've moved to Maui. We've got a nanny during the day for a few days for 4 hours. And that's while I'm working. It's for my wife to have some time to herself. And we had a babysitter, but then she quit. And so, we've been pretty religious with date nights throughout our marriage, 10 years. And they're happening a bit infrequent now. But we've been just figuring out and finding our gaps. Like our nanny comes during the day. And sometimes if I don't have a call, my wife and I will just kind of sneak off and go for lunch. We get a little bit of time sometime in the evenings before we go to sleep. We both go to bed super early. She gets in bed at 7:30. I get in bed at 8:30. We're all out by 9. But sometimes we get some time in the evenings. But it's the biggest challenge in our life right now that I'm working through and navigating is how to have time with my wife, with 2 kids that don't use screens, and without that much childcare and we don't have any family on the island. So it's like. That's the logistical challenge that we are facing.
And COVID,
so
like COVID is also affecting whether there is as much childcare. I'm assuming in Maui it's probably similar.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's affecting how much childcare there is. People just have their, they're either vaccinated or they wear a mask or they don't give a shit. So, it's kind of, there's a solution. It's more, I think part of the challenge is we're just new here and we've tried new babysitters. We also live as far as you possibly can from everything. We're like at almost the top of the volcano. So we live out in the middle of nowhere, basically. So not everybody wants to drive up. Our babysitter quit basically because it was like too far. Another one was like, I want to work for you guys, but my car doesn't make it up the hill. It keeps like overheating. So it was like, that's kind of one of the problems, but we're moving shortly, so it should improve.
And so just to recap everything that I've learned from this so far is there's 2 moments. One, we were giving him the iPad. Again, not too long, in my opinion. Like compared to what I've seen is like 30 minutes to an hour. And like, this is to have a break so I can have some time with my wife. But the cost of that was
too high.
Noticed that we noticed significant changes in how he was developing, how he's showing up. So we made the decision to, it was worth it, not like having the problem of figuring out how to create more time together while having a child with no screen, because he's benefiting so much more from
it. So much. Yeah.
Cost was
it's cost benefit analysis. I mean, and you make those as parents, and the cool thing about it is it doesn't feel like a sacrifice because it's not a zero-sum game when it's your kid. Like me giving up that with her, would I love that? Yes, but I would love him being healthy and developing his mind more. And so it doesn't feel like, it's like, it feels like I'm giving and I'm actually getting something from it because I'm getting him being better off. And it's from the outside, it can sound like a trade-off, but it doesn't really, the experience isn't that.
That's a wonderful way of seeing it. Cause like I put myself in the shoes of a guy who's like, I don't know, maybe he's a young guy. Maybe he's 20. Maybe he just became a dad. Maybe he's 18, 17. He's like, look, like what I've noticed with guys who probably don't want to be in their child's life, at least that is because they just didn't want to be a dad.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like you're kind of not cajoled into it in the sense that someone cajoled you, but like you're at the end of the day, we're doing it ourselves. Like, look, I got to do this. This is what I'm supposed to do. This is what I should do. And it's like, I think that's where someone, if I put myself in that person's shoes, like, yeah, like this isn't zero sum game. Like, no, like this is not something that I want to be doing. I don't want to sacrifice. Like, I'm curious to see. I mean, that's just me ranting. There's no question out of that, unless there's something that you've experienced or seen with other men. They're like, yeah, like this is how we've changed the perspective.
Well, I think you're making an interesting point. Like some dads don't want to be dads. Or let's just say some guys who made a baby don't want to be dads. And kind of like the whole gender versus sex thing. There's like, you know, there's your sex, like that just is. It's like chromosomes, DNA, whatever. Like there's males and females, like that's a fact biologically. And then this idea that gender is a layer on top of sex. You know, everybody's going to have their opinion about that, but I like the idea that there's a difference between your sex and your gender, because it's like, oh, there's a conceptual framework that we place on top of biology called gender. And so in that same way, there's the biological fact that your sperm made a kid, and then there's the conceptual layer on top of that called being a dad. And and not everybody, just because they made a kid, want to be a dad, and you can actually make a kid and not be a dad. Right. And so I'm saying that just to point out that, like, there's no fucking law in the universe that says because you made a kid, you need to be a dad. You should be a dad. You have to be a dad. And I think the idea that that's the case will probably create some resistance to that role that will have men who made children not be a dad to a greater degree than they would be if they weren't so afraid of this role that they thought they had to be. In the same way that I think, like, I've got a really good friend that is exploring manipulating his body to be more female because of his feeling not safe to express his feminine qualities in the body of a man. But what if we didn't judge men for being feminine? What would happen then? And that same inquiry is like, what if we didn't judge people as making a kid, meaning they needed to show up in a certain way? How much more fatherly attributes would be expressed in these guys? I've never thought about this before, but in listening to you say it.
That is so interesting what you said, like, how can we change what, like, not change, but like, what does being dad mean to that person?
Yeah, what's their version of being a dad?
Yeah, it's like, again, like if we use a different example, like how you make money. Like most people are taught, or at least the way that I was taught, was like, look, you go get a job, 9 to 5. You do this and that. This is how you make money in the world. This is how you do it. And it's like, no one.
That's one idea, right?
Yeah, and people think that is the idea, or like,
right? Most people. But there's other kids that grow up learning that you don't work, you invest.
Exactly. See, invest. That's a newish.
It's a totally different idea.
5-10 years ago. Oh wow, like you can invest in things, and like you even you had an email the other day, which to me, like, just again, the wording of it was so powerful. It was like, look, if you like, it was about coaching with you, and it was like, look, like, if you can't afford like coaching with me or something, but you want the outcome, then find a way. Find a way to do it, because it's not about you coaching with me, it's about your outcome. Like, how bad do you want your goal? You're gonna find a way to do that. And to me, it was like, like invest, like you get a loan, not because it's a loan, but because you're investing in yourself. You're putting the chips on yourself. Like you're the horse in the race. Right. And that to me was like so cool to think about. But again, it's like, here's another man who's eloquating is the word, I guess, or just saying it. He's speaking about this in a certain way that clicked for me. I think it's like you said, like how can everyone does it differently? Like my brother-in-law, he's a different dad than my dad was, or he's a different dad than my grandpa than you are. Like, how can we be a dad in the way that is right for us and our family? Yeah, without the judgments or the stigma, or even like, this is how it's supposed, like, it's like this rigid thing.
Yeah, and I would even go so far as to say that there's certain men out there that the best way that they could be a dad is to not be involved in their kid's life because of who they are and what influence that would have on that kid. And they might see that this kid is better off. Like I created that kid through my sperm, but they're better off being raised by their mother and another man than they are by me. That's my version of being a dad. Because, like, otherwise we're there being like, you should be completely different than what you are. If you impregnate a woman, that means you should cultivate your character in such a way that makes it's like, I just don't have this idea that anybody should be anything. And so I think that if we were all completely free of ideas about what we should be, and we just were free to do what we love, then the most beautiful things would come from that. And I know, look at other species, like some animals impregnate and take off, and others impregnate and hang around until the thing's born, and then they take off, or they hang around for the first 6 months. Like, not all male creatures hang out in dad in the way that we prescribe that they could or should. Yeah, I'm just open to the, that none of that stuff aligns with me. For me, a dad is about being around, not working all the time, like,
Yeah.
And a father is maternal as well, which sounds kind of weird, but like I bring a lot of mothering to my kids. Like if I could breastfeed them, I would, like it's so for me, being a dad is being both a mother and a father, like a lot, but I'm just, for me, the freedom to go that far in is also comes from that the idea that there's no truth, there's no right way to be a dad. And it has to extend in the other direction too, in order for me to be really free to believe that.
Yeah, to me, what even stands out from that is like, there's a fear that if me, myself, and I think that things have to be a certain way, and here I have you, JP, you're a free bird, you're going to do whatever you want. For me, I could see like, yeah, there's a fear that you're not going to do it the right way, or that you're not going to, like, you're going to hurt someone. Eventually that's going to hurt me. And that's where these rules come in. That's where we can even think like that's how laws exist. That's like because we're afraid of what someone's going to do when there's no protection. There's like a lack of certainty. So cool.
I did. You made me think of something else. Like in the men's group that I was in some years ago, they invited me to do a practice that I think I shared with you as well. But like writing a letter to my father, thanking him for everything he ever did for me.
Okay. No,
did I share that with you?
No, but
we did a different letter. But yeah. So I did. It was just, Dad, thank you for this. Thank you for that. I just want, thank you for taking me to Disney World. Thank you for this and that. And actually what just came out of me while I was writing, I didn't plan on it, is I said, thank you for leaving Mom. I was like, what? It just came out. And I was like, what? Because I was still in my 30s, like hanging on to judging my dad for leaving my mom, but it came out when I was in the state of gratitude. Thank you for leaving Mom. And it was like, I stayed with it and contemplated and felt into it because the gratitude was true, but my brain was like trying to catch up. And what I actually saw that was like, if my dad had stayed with my mom, it wouldn't have been true for him. And I would have been living under a parenting structure where one of the parents was doing something, even though he didn't love it, it wasn't true for him. And I found out that I was grateful that my dad left my mom because I learned from him to always put what I would love and my truth, my personal truth first, despite social cultural ideals, despite what the church had to say. Like the church did not appreciate that. It was a Catholic church. Like they weren't really acknowledging that happened. Right. And so, but they did it anyway, or he did it anyway. My mom wasn't really leading that. And so that was extremely liberating for me. And that's kind of what I'm saying here is it's like the willingness to not live under the duress of cultural ideals, social ideals, inner traumas, that like total freedom is actually a really powerful place to create from. And I think to create being a father from. No idea about what a father should be, but just ideas about what a father can be.
I love that. And yes, you did share that with me. I didn't know it was from your men's group. I thought you were talking about a different exercise or a different letter. But I'm curious, like, have you received any like pushback or any backlash from like anyone? And I don't mean like a public thing. I mean like maybe even like just family or even like your wife or just like people that you guys are close to with regard to how you do raise your kids.
Oh yeah, man. I mean, I don't really experience it as pushback. I'm kind of like Aikido, Steven Seagal, because if they push, I kind of just like move out of the way and use their energy. So I don't really, I'm not Steven Seagal that like beating up my wife, but like the Aikido part of it, like, the part that looks good on TV.
No ponytail. You don't have the ponytail.
Yeah, I don't have a ponytail. No. But people will try to attack, and when you know me, right? Like I'm not really. I see truth in everything. I see, yeah, I have a both and so I just tend to agree with everybody when they disagree with me, and so it just kind of fizzles out pretty quickly. Not because I'm like, laissez-faire about things, but just because I can see everybody's perspective. I can see how they're creating the world from where they're standing. And so, yeah, we make lots of choices about how to parent our kids. And we're kind of extreme. We're kind of crazy hippies, we don't do that much screen time. We go to like a kind of hippie, our kids go to like a hippie school. Our kid goes to a hippie school. Like, we watch this show that we love on Apple TV Plus, Ted Lasso.
Yes.
Yeah, right. You know that show? And there's a scene in one of the episodes where like the woman's like not eating. She doesn't want to eat. The therapist doesn't want to eat the biscuit that he made because it's got sugar in it. And he's like, you don't eat sugar? I've never heard of a people like that except for this people that live in this ungodly place called Santa Monica. And my wife and I laughed because we literally moved from London to Santa Monica because every time we like told people about our dietary preferences, they were like, you're kind of weird. And so we moved to Santa Monica so that like we wouldn't be the weirdos. And we lived there for 7 years and it was just kind of normal to eat like freaks. But so yeah.
TV show.
Yeah, but like, of course, I know that I'm an odd duck, and I've been that my whole life, and so, so I'm just okay with it. But yeah, all the time.
What is that? So, again, like I don't know how, I don't know. This is the first word that comes to mind, but to me, like you're like this evolved person, this evolved human, where like there's a level of awareness and growth, and just like following you on Instagram, just watching your stories, like, yeah, like, dude, this guy's like a philosopher. Like, you call yourself a philosopher. Like, you identify
I do,
as
yeah.
a philosopher.
I do, yeah.
Like, yeah, like this, like, you think at it in a different way. And for me, it's like, okay, how can I bridge the gap from someone who's like seeing things in such an awesome way, in such a growth level, and for someone who's maybe a little bit more not there yet? Where would you say, like I'm curious, like, how do you deal with that? How do you deal with, like, again, people like, oh, why are you living that? Why are you going to mess up your kids? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? Like, what do you do for that?
Well, if somebody said to me, you're going to mess up your kids, I think the thing that I would say is like, I guess that I would get curious. I get that's what I do. And same thing I do in coaching. It's like, I get really curious about the impact that their perspective on what I'm doing with my kids is having on them. It's like, wow. It's like really touching that you're that concerned about my kids. What's that about? And if I didn't know them, and if they're like a family member, it's like, it's just so, I love so much how much you care about them. And so I connect with them on what it is that they want. Like I was sitting, to take it off topic for a second to make the point, is like, I was sitting at a table with my family, and there's a big political difference in my family, and half of them are like, defund the police, and half of them are like, you're effing crazy, we need the police. And it's like they were just going back and forth, and I'm like, what do you guys want to defund the, like, why? Because we just want a safer environment. And what about you guys? We just want safer. It's like, so you guys want the same thing? Well, yeah, okay then. And it was just all kind of quiet, and I was like, oh yeah, we're all the same, we want the same thing. And so it's for me, when somebody's got like, you're doing it wrong, it's like, well, thank you. I love that you care that much. What is it that you want to actually happen? Well, I just want them to grow up healthy. Yeah, me too. It's super important to me. It's like, oh, wait, we want the same thing. I can relax. Okay, we can relax. Cool. Are you interested in to know why I think that would help me to get to this thing that we both want? Well, yeah, I am. Okay, cool. Now I've got somebody who's listening. And I'm always tracking for what is their state of being, because that's way more important than what I'm talking about. Like if they start to get frustrated or defensive, then they think that I'm trying to get to something, and they're going to lose what they want, but they're not, because we both want the same thing at the end of the day. So just come back to that.
First thing that comes to mind is, look, like, I know I would want, a part of me would want to be attached to an outcome. Like, look, I'm doing this so you can see my point of view. So this way you could also not come at me like this in the future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, protect myself from your vengeance.
Yeah, and I'm curious, like, again, that's my way of thinking, and maybe there's definitely a different way of thinking, but I'm curious for you, like, all right, what if they listened to you, they heard you, and they're like, nothing changes or maybe not much changes on them. They're like, all right, well, I still think you're messing your kids up.
Well, I live in a world where people think what I'm doing is not right and wrong, and I'm okay with that. You know, it's just like, 'cause I don't need you to see the world the way that I see it. I mean, this is my whole universe. Like, I live in a radical world where you can do only what you love in every moment of every day. And through that, you can have everything that you want. I mean, that's like so antithetical to the way most people live life. And so I think just through living that way for so long, I've just come to accept that like most people are going to disagree with me about how I do life. And that's actually important because if it wasn't, then that means I'd be living their way. Like my friend Mark has this idea called reverse role models. Like if you're an entrepreneur and you want to go out, if you want to be an entrepreneur and you ask all of your friends who have jobs if it's a good idea and they tell you no, that's a good thing. Because they're saying no from the context of their world, which is to work for somebody else. That sounds too risky. Okay, then I definitely needed to do it because the way that you do risk is not the way I want to live. So I see people most doesn't mean that I'm not open, but most of the time, if I'm being with somebody and they're not listening or they can't see it, it's like most of the time I take that as encouragement. Otherwise, if I do what they do, I'm going to get their life. Like, why would I raise my kid the way my dad raised me? I'm just going to get another me. The point is to evolve. If I do the exact same thing, my dad may as well have had my kid. Just skip me.
That's funny. I love that. And well, I guess my question to you is, what one piece of advice would you give to a man who maybe he feels like the outlier? He feels so radically different, and he's not thinking the way right now that he's like I'm 100% confident in how I'm doing things. What is a piece of advice that you want to give to him?
Oh, just get free. Get free of the of giving a shit. You don't get to be you under the duress of the ideas of other people. And meaning you don't get to be you if you're concerned with what being you means to other people. Like it's always a choice point. I can either be me or I cannot. I guess there's three options. I cannot be me. I can be me suffering under the idea that that's not okay, or I can just be me and not give a shit. I think the latter is probably the best. Like if you're going to be you, you might as well be free in being you instead of being you shit scared all the time. I don't like living life through courage, meaning like I'm going to feel this fear and I'm going to build up so much fucking energy to overcome that. It's like where everything's a force and a grind because I'm constantly living in conflict with other ideas. Like just let it all, like who cares? Give it up. Be free. Give up giving a shit.
For the dad who maybe lives out of the country or maybe lives in another state,
Mm-hmm.
he doesn't see his kids as often, or maybe he just hasn't been in his kid's life and he wants to reconnect or build a relationship, what is one piece of advice that you have for him?
Just say I'm sorry and go in. And when they don't want to listen, say I'm sorry and go in. Meet them where they're at. Just keep coming back. Like love is so fucking powerful, and eventually it will penetrate the past, and the door will open. But don't give up. Don't push, but don't wait either.
For the guy who wants to be a dad, or maybe maybe him and his wife are expecting, or maybe they're a few weeks in, a few months in to being a new dad, what is one piece of advice that you would give him?
Time. Give as much time to your kids as you can. There's no amount of time that's too much. Yes, sometimes being for your family is not being there, meaning you got to go out and hunt, you got to go make money, whatever, you got to go take care of your body. But find ways to be around and be with your kids and be present more and more. Throw the fucking phone out the window, like just be present. Man, like even though my kids are 1 and 5, I still like am so amazed at how quickly it's already going by. It's just, every moment is so precious. So soak them up.
And so this part isn't for me. This part isn't for any dad or anyone else. It's for two people in specific. Mm-hmm. What is something that you would like to tell Rumi, and what is something that you'd like to tell Asher?
I love to tell them both the same thing, and that is I love everything about you, and there's nothing you could ever do that would change that, and I'm here for you any moment for the rest of your lives, whether I'm dead or alive.
JP, thank you so much for showing up. Thank you so much for saying yes to this, and thank you so much for just spitting those hot tracks, man.
Cool, man.
As a guy, man, I love
Yeah.
listening to you, and this is a great opportunity for me. Thank you so much, man.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you. I have to challenge you on something you said right at the beginning that's been bugging me this whole time.
Mm-hmm.
You said in the intro, I've just like everything that I'm doing is like copy and paste of you. And it's like, well, not really copy and paste. Dude, you
Yeah.
are the furthest from copy and paste that I may have ever experienced. And what I mean by that is you take everything that you're learning and you put it into practice and you study it and you use it and you make it your own so deeply, so profoundly that it's so far from copy and paste. It's as far as it possibly could be. So, yeah, that's just the truth, dude. So I acknowledge you for your commitment to your own growth, as a son, as a, father to be, I'm sure in the near future. So thank you.
Thank you, man. I'm blushing.
You're welcome.
Dude, thank you so much, brother.
All right.